Hi, so we should be live, and hopefully I am able to be heard. So I'm going live rather than making an actual video because I thought it would just be easier to do it this way rather than record it into a camera and then have to get the footage into my laptop, do all the editing, uploading it, turning it into a video. It's just easier to go live to talk about this. So today, YouTube has announced to creators that it's introducing some new changes to how ads are done and how ad revenue, how the sort of whole ad system works. So I'll just give you a sort of touch on how it is now. So how it is now is, as a creator, when you're monetized, if you're not monetized, YouTube can put ads before, during, and after your video, and you have no control over that. It will just happen. They can decide where the ads go and whether your video has ads on it or not, and then they obviously keep all the revenue from that. If you're monetized, then currently you can turn on ads when you upload a video, and with those ads that you've turned on, you can select, you've got tick boxes, you can select to turn on ads before videos, during videos, and after videos. So pre-roll ads, mid-roll ads, and post-roll ads. I only ever turn on pre-roll ads because I upload sleep stories and I don't want adverts during or after my videos. I want you to be able to just watch my sleep story uninterrupted and know that when it ends, assuming you've got you don't have autoplay turned on, when it gets to the end of the video, that's the end of what you're watching, and then nothing. Yeah, you're hopefully asleep. So I don't put mid-roll ads in my videos, even though YouTube does sometimes put mid-roll ads but doesn't pass on any ad revenue when it does that. And I don't put post-roll ads on my videos. So the change that YouTube is introducing is that there will be one box where you can either have ads on or you can have ads off. That's the change they're making. You can't choose what types of ads people see. So you can't say, I want people to see skippable ads, non-skippable ads. You can't select what types of ads people will see. So this is coming into place in November. You either say, I want ads on my video on, or you say, I want ads turned off. Mid-roll ads, you can independently still select. So I've been trying to find out from YouTube. I contacted YouTube earlier. Once I received the email, I contacted YouTube to say, does this mean that I've got no control to turn off post-roll ads? Because obviously I need to make a living, so I need the pre-roll ads on because I need to make something from my videos, because or else I can't make any of the videos. And so I wanted to know from YouTube, does that mean, because it's ambiguous in how it's worded, does that mean that I can't turn off post rolls but have pre-roll ads on? And YouTube initially responded to me. I told them, I've read your email, I've read the documents that you direct people to, so don't just direct me to those documents. So what they did in reply is just directed me, essentially quoted what I quoted to them from the email they sent me, and then directed me to the document on their website, which is the document I said I've read that was vague, that I want an answer from. They haven't responded to me twice now asking them to clarify, rather than just quoting to go and read the document, which I've already read. But I've just watched Channel Maker's video. So Channel Makers is a channel that makes videos to support creators. So they make videos about how to do YouTube and YouTube updates and things like that. Their interpretation of what YouTube has distributed is my interpretation of what YouTube has distributed, and is what I don't want the interpretation to be, and what I was questioning YouTube directly to try and get clarification, hoping they would clarify that my interpretation and Channel Maker's interpretation is wrong, which is that if you have ads turned on your video, you will have pre-roll ads on, and you will have post-roll ads on. So that means that anyone from November, anyone who watches any sleep story channel or any meditation channel, ASMR channel, any channel where the reason you watch those videos is perhaps to relax or to do something where the last thing you want is to be interrupted when the video ends, you will have a high chance of being interrupted when the video ends. Because just like now, I have pre-roll ads on, but YouTube doesn't show everyone the ads all the time. Because if you say you've just finished watching a video, if that video was quite short, but you saw an ad before that video, for YouTube's algorithms assume that you might be annoyed, say 5 minutes after watching one video, to then see the ads again. So YouTube already doesn't necessarily always show these ads, but what this means is that essentially for every single creator on the platform who makes sleep story content or any other content similar to this kind of thing, where listeners use our content largely because we don't put ads during or after our videos, by default, these videos will now have ads on. So unless you're a creator who is big enough, has a big enough audience and following, who's really, I don't know what the word is, but like really supportive, who maybe so many of them have subscribed on Patreon and all the rest of it. So you've got this really big chunk of income coming in from some other sources so that you can then have YouTube as a always ads off source. Because as I say, the choice is going to be you can either have the ads on or off. So if you're a big enough channel, which obviously I'm not, then it won't be a problem because you can just turn all your ads off and you can then make your money from Patreon and other sources and it wouldn't be a problem. But yeah, so I just wanted to jump on here. I've been up since 4 o'clock, so I'm definitely keeping this short because it's now nearly midnight. That's 4 a.m, not 4 p.m. But I just wanted to kind of update people because it's not a particularly good update from YouTube to hear today, that it's very likely that people are going to end up never being able to find sleep stories unless a channel is big enough that they can make enough revenue from things like Patreon. They're not going to be able to find sleep stories that don't have ads at the end of the story. I have a kind of idea of how I would get around this, but the way that people watch the videos that I would get around it with means that it won't work for the people who watch those videos in that way. And that is the only way I can think to get around it, is that if you make all-night videos, so 8-hour videos or something, where even if there's an advert at the end of the 8 hours, in theory, as long as you watch the video from minute 1, then you'll make it all the way through the night before you get an advert at the end of the video. But I know that some people seem to start watching the all-night videos like halfway through or 3/4 of the way through. They don't watch it as is sort of intended, which is it's an all-night video for you to watch from the start. But that's kind of the only way around it, is to only ever upload 8-hour videos, which means uploading a video every 2 months or something, because it would take me a couple of months to create 8 hours worth of video content to be able to make an 8-hour video, and then just essentially release all my stories as one bulk video once every 2 months or whatever, so that you've got an 8-hour video once every 2 months. That means that you can then listen to the entire video through, but then obviously you only ever hear, I've made 8 stories, say 8 one-hour stories. I've made 8 one-hour stories, but unless you jump through, you're only ever going to keep hearing a bit of the first story, and then hopefully you'll be fast asleep. And then if you wake up, maybe you hear little tiny bits of other stories. And it would defeat the whole point of making those videos if people then decide, oh, I wanted to hear story 6 because that's what I've heard story 1 on the first night, story 2 on the second night, story 3 on the third night. So, story 4 on the fourth night, whatever, I just want to listen from story 6. You're probably going to get woken in the middle of the night by an ad because you jumped into the video halfway through. So that's really kind of the update. The mid-roll ad thing has always been a problem, and there's nothing that can be done about it. In 2018, that was a problem with YouTube putting ads in the middle of videos and denying it. 2019, they admitted that they did a trial where they were putting ads in the middle of videos. And then in 2019, they said, and we'll be rolling this out as a permanent thing in 2020, where everyone's mid-roll ads are being turned on. And so, like Jason Stevenson, I requested, because they said, if you don't want this to happen, you can request that it doesn't happen on your channel. So I requested not to have all the ads turned on my channel. They turned all the ads on my channel, so I had to then turn them all off so that you could end up, I had to go through manually turning them all off. But then since then, YouTube has still continued to turn on mid-roll ads. And as I think I announced a few months ago, it was announced that YouTube, if they feel a video could be making more money by having ads in the middle of it, and the creator has the mid-roll ads turned off, because it's their platform, from time to time they'll turn those mid-roll ads on so that it makes more money. But because the creator had the ads turned off, YouTube keeps all the money, from what I've heard, YouTube keeps all the money that they make from turning on the mid-roll ads to people. So the mid-roll ad issue is still an issue, but nowhere near as bad as it was. But the current issue is going to hit a lot of creators and a lot of audience. So a lot of viewers are going to be negatively impacted by this, not just of my channel, but obviously of lots of other people's channels. So that's why I've always had my sleep stories literally everywhere. I've had them available on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon MP3, iTunes, you can buy them from, SoundCloud. They're on my own Dan Jones Sleep Stories app that I have. They're on Patreon. Every single story is on Patreon. So all of my stories are obviously available everywhere else off YouTube, to make sure that there's plenty of ways that people can access them without having to use YouTube. The difficulty has been that not many YouTube viewers have wanted to obviously go off YouTube to like Patreon and my app or any other feature. But yeah, so the only workaround I can think of at the moment is the idea of just doing 8-hour videos and only ever releasing 8-hour videos, say one every 2 months, instead of releasing a video every single week, as a way of them making sure that that video will have an ad at the beginning and it will have an ad at the end. But as long as the audience watches it from the beginning for the whole eight hours and never jumps into different stories throughout the night instead, like, as I mentioned, deciding, oh, I'd like to hear story 6 because I never get to hear it. It means I'm making a lot of content people will hopefully be asleep through, but at the same time, it would mean that the audience won't get ads then constantly through the night, from listening to stories or at the end of a story. We get a choice where ads are put in the video still. So if I turn on mid-roll ads, in theory, I can either turn it on and say auto-place them, which by default YouTube auto-places them roughly every 3 minutes for the whole duration of the video, or I can say I want to place them in this video how I want them placed, and then I can choose the locations during the video. But obviously I don't turn mid-roll ads on for any of my videos, so that's not really an issue. The links have always, for years and years and years and years, been in the description. So before Patreon, I linked to my Sleep Stories podcast that I had for years. I don't know how long, maybe 2014, 2015, up to so long before I did actual sleep stories on YouTube. When I was only releasing a few sleep stories, I used to release sleep stories and meditations and self-hypnosis stuff via Podbean, and used to do that right up until 2021, I think, when I moved over to Patreon. But the links have always been in all of my descriptions of all of my sleep story videos, and obviously a number of the links are in to the main places, because you can only have so many links, are in the top, on my about page and at the top of the page on my channel. So I've always made sure the links are as easy to find as possible. And obviously I moved from doing my the Podbean podcast app to doing Patreon because a lot of YouTube people were saying they would only subscribe if it was on Patreon. They don't use anything other than Patreon and YouTube. So I closed down the app, the Podbean podcast app, to get onto Patreon. Yeah, it is a challenge, the sort of, do whatever you need to do to be successful and financially secure. On YouTube, it's going to be a case of every creator like me is going to be in the same boat. So every creator is going to be in a position where any video you've currently got available, YouTube have said that whatever settings you have will stay the same on those videos. They're not going to retrospect, unlike what they did with the mid-roll thing, they're not going to kind of retroactively turn on their new version of the settings to all your old videos. But it means that from November, every video that us creators release, and so it depends how far ahead we are. So say I scheduled videos now through November and December and January or something, then in theory, the change won't kick in until I'm uploading videos in November. So it depends how far ahead a channel is. But in theory, every single one of us creators will be in exactly the same boat. We'll suddenly get inundated with lots of users who don't know that this change has happened. A lot of creators who may not have paid attention to this change happening. And then a lot of users who suddenly get awoken half an hour later, an hour later, 3 hours later, whatever it is, depending on the video, when an ad kicks in on that video, and then they'll complain at the creator and say, how dare you put ads in your video, or at the end of your video it woke me up, and all the rest of it. And the only way around it seems to either be to make sure your video is really long, which means either, for example, uploading a story that's an hour long on an 8-hour piece of rain sound or something, which YouTube has also been clamping down on that, the same as Spotify has. They've been clamping down on trying to shut down and remove from their platform. So this is Spotify. They've been clamping down and removing from their platform places that upload albums full of, for example, just rain sound or something, where it goes through, someone listens to the album for the entire night, maybe on a loop, and each rain sound might be 40 seconds or a minute long, and then it moves to the next track and the next track and the next track, and you get paid for every single track. And so you end up with Spotify having to pay a creator who has got like an 8-hour album of 1-minute tracks or something stupid, or a 1-hour album that they say just loop my album, and then Spotify's paying them for people playing those albums throughout the entire night on a loop. And Spotify has kind of kicked back at that and started removing or shadow banning those sort of albums. And so it's whether YouTube has been not happy with people having long videos that don't have a lot of content in them, that's not particularly original or whatever, because it's just a long piece of content that's perhaps very similar to your other videos. So they see it as you're just repeatedly uploading essentially the same video. If I uploaded, for example, 8 hours of rain with a 1 hour story at the beginning, 7 hours of that is essentially the same as the next 7 hours for the next night and the next 7 hours for the next night that someone listens to. So over time, I could end up with hundreds of videos that essentially sound like each video is the same video, with just a tiny bit changed at the beginning. And there's a good chance YouTube will then clamp down on that and be very angry about it. But that's the other kind of thing, that rather than do like 3 hour videos where an hour of it is a story and then maybe 2 hours is rain or something, following the story, which is relatively common among creators. It could be that we'll end up having to do videos that are 8 hours long with whatever the story is at the beginning. So yeah, it's going to make it difficult to know. It will depend on the audience's reaction. If the audience ends up not minding having an advert come on at the end of a video when you're trying to sleep, then obviously we can carry on doing what we're doing. Technically, we would end up making more income because you'll hear an ad at the end as well as at the beginning. YouTube's thing would be, well, if those people don't want the ads, they can either follow you on a platform where they don't have the ads, some like Patreon or something where it's paid, or they can subscribe to YouTube Premium and then go ad-free on YouTube, where the creator still makes money from the premium subscription, which they're very heavily attempting to make that be the case. But yeah, it's something that I think is going to make it very awkward for a lot of smaller creators, or creators who predominantly make their income from YouTube revenue, rather than being able to turn your YouTube ad revenue off and then just rely on Patreon support or something, or app support. So obviously, as you all know, I'm trying to encourage more people to subscribe to my app, and have tried to make that as reasonable as possible, so that if you're listening to my sleep stories on the app, then you're not obviously having to worry about YouTube ads and things like that, and you get all of these different things. So yeah, so that's the update that I wanted to give. Not a jolly update, just a YouTube update about their latest decisions. I don't know if there's a big enough backlash against it, YouTube might make changes. They might also see it as the people who watch sleep stories and other similar kind of content where you don't want an ad at the end might be so minute that they ignore us as creators and just think, no, you're such a small percentage of the audience, of the sort of creator world, that they don't pay attention. But I don't know how it will change things in November. For me, if I can't end up obviously making income off of YouTube to replace the ads, I'm not going to be able to turn off my ads on YouTube. I'm going to have them on, and just run the risk of knowing that people are going to get ads after my videos as well as before them, and hope that people are just going to accept that and be okay with it, or that enough people will accept that. I think there's a way of turning on notifications for the app. I don't know how you do it because I haven't looked, because I'd never want notifications on anything. yeah, YouTube is introducing a thing that gives you notices to tell you seem to be using an ad blocker, and they are blocking ad blockers. So anyone who uses an ad blocker, they currently have been giving people randomly choosing to give people notifications to say you appear to be using an ad blocker. Obviously, I'm very anti people using ad blockers because essentially it means that it's less revenue on a platform that already doesn't pay as much revenue as especially smaller creators could do with. But yeah, so I think it's a good move that YouTube stops ad blockers. What I don't think is a good move is YouTube overruling creators who know their channels and their audiences best and saying that you have to essentially, they obviously it is their platform, so it's their choice, but essentially they're kind of saying if your content means that you can't have all of the ads on, then we're probably not the platform for you. That's kind of the message I get from them. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, I know on the Passion.io app, which I subscribe to, so Passion's own app, not the Passion.io app, they've got two apps. I get notifications when there's a whatever it is, at something. I can't remember. It's whatever I use. That when you tag everyone. So when I tag everyone on the app, I'm just looking now at the app so I can tell you. Oop. Bear with me a second. My phone was on my app for my light that's behind me. So when I tag @channel, in theory, that's supposed to send every single subscriber to the app a notification to say that I've posted an announcement, in this case, because it's in the announcement section. So whenever I do an announcement, and I don't do an announcement for every single story because I don't want to spam people in the app. I don't want to end up having it that every single week you're getting more announcements from me. So I try not to do it every single time I upload a story. But I do, for example, my most recent one, which should have pinged out to everyone, was just a reminder that I'm always adding more content and that I've added more 2023 stories, including the Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland, and most recently, and obviously I've added the full cognitive behavioral therapy 90 lesson course plus all the resources, and I've added a fan fiction Last of Us story as well. That's not mentioned there, but that's added as well. So in theory, that is supposed to, what you get told and what seems to happen to me for the apps the Passion.io app that I'm subscribed to, when they tag @channel, every user gets a notification because they've tagged @channel. So in theory, there should be an option to turn that on for notifications. But yeah, the general thing with with me uploading or sharing sleep stories is I always upload sleep stories to Patreon every Monday or Sunday. Sometimes I decide to go a day early to give a bit of extra time. But I always upload those sleep stories every Sunday or Monday to Patreon. It's going to be the same on the app. Everything's always going live either on that time or earlier. So the Last of Us fan fiction that I just mentioned will go on to Patreon next Monday because I didn't get it done in time to go live this Monday. And so I already had, I think, Alice in Wonderland or whatever it was that I'd recorded that went live this Monday on Patreon. And I'd already done the Patreon exclusive one just a few days earlier on the 1st. So I just decided to leave it for Patreon until the next Monday, which is still obviously early compared to YouTube, which may go live the Tuesday or maybe another week. I don't know. I've got a number of different options for what I could go live with, what I could post on YouTube next. And generally, apart from, so where I would do a notification, the assumption would always be, oh, every week Dan uploads stuff to the app, and it's going to be predominantly in the 2023 section because we're in 2023, or it's going to be in the magical section because I upload magical stories from time to time. So it's going to be in one of those two areas. If it's in a different area, like, for example, in the fairy tales and stories area, or somewhere else on the app, like when I upload all the me reading all my children's stories, those things I will obviously do an announcement for, because I can't expect people to scroll up and down through the app to see, oh, has Dan added any more courses? Has Dan added, which I will do, has Dan added more courses? Has Dan added any more fairy tales? Has Dan added any more children's stories? Whatever it happens to be. So I can't expect people to scroll up and down. But I do naturally assume that if someone's using the app regularly, then they'll probably naturally think, oh, I wonder if there's any new stories in the 2023 section where they are, because it's 2023. Wonder if there's any new stories. Oh, look, there's a new story. Or, oh, no, there isn't yet. And obviously, if anyone's wondering, then they can just ask. If they're a premium subscriber, they can ask in the sleep stories section or whatever. I think I give normal subscribers access to the announcements section so that they get all the same announcements. But yeah, I don't like notifications, so I try and have all notifications for everything off. But anyway, it is midnight now, so I've kept this to, I'm trying to see how long I've been live. 32 minutes, that's not too bad going. And I will hopefully see everyone later. I'm going to do a little poll on my channel at some point to see what people on my channel would like me to post next out of the options I've got to post. See if there's a favourite or something. I think it's between Alice in Wonderland, the Last of Us fan fiction, or the fairy tales video. Only one of those is currently turned into an actual video, though. But yeah, I will turn into a pumpkin. So I just wanted to jump on here, obviously, give this update about YouTube's ad changes and the potential impact of that on channels like mine. I'm hoping that YouTube will get back to me and say, oh no, it's okay, you're wrong in your interpretation, and Channel Makers is wrong as well in their interpretation. Actually, yes, you've got full control over being able to decide whether to have post-roll ads on or off. It's not just all ads are on. They do say it's just going to be one switch. But I'm hoping that they don't just mean, as we are all interpreting it to mean, you either have the ads on or you have them off, because I don't know how users will feel if you're going to end up having ads at the end of every video that you watch, say on my channel, for example. And I know it's just going to make it very difficult, and it's going to mean, well, a lot of thinking about the future of whether it's possible to keep doing this, creating sleep stories. So anyway, thank you for jumping in here and listening to me give this update. Hopefully I will see you in future videos.